Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about two of the foods that are the most anabolic foods in the world. This is going to always be controversial when you bring these things up because certain people are going to argue about this, and they're going to argue about things like saturated fat, and these are the same people who are more than happy sometimes to consume all sorts of refined garbage. And they're not actually looking at the real data and the stuff on athletes out there, and that's whole milk and whole eggs. And what I mean by that is that when these things have actually been looked at and compared to their other counterparts, they are inferior for muscle growth. And a lot of times you'll get people who'll say, well, even that extra fat in those foods can slow down absorption post-workout. Well, if that was the case, then the studies would reflect that, wouldn't they? But every study that has ever looked at it, because multiple ones have been done, that have taken healthy young men after a training session that looked at comparing whole eggs versus egg whites with the same amount of protein post-workout, even on similar caloric diets, which one do you think creates a higher muscle protein synthesis and speeds up recovery more? The whole eggs. Whole eggs produce more muscle protein synthesis even post-workout than egg whites do with the same amount of protein. All of the fat and the other nutrients in the whole egg seem to promote a larger anabolic response. And then when it comes down to it, we know that egg whites are one of the best proteins in the world. In terms of amino acid quality, bioavailability, everything else, egg whites are considered to be a vastly superior protein source, particularly for gaining muscle. Right, that's a superior protein source. Yet when it's compared to the whole egg, it gets beat. And if you think about it, whole eggs in nature, or whatever you want to call it, they grow a whole bird. Entire baby bird grows from that. It's everything that they need to grow into a chick that hatches inside that egg. It is a nutrition powerhouse. It's a nutrition powerhouse of a lot of things that a lot of people may not be getting enough of in their diet. And, again, people want to argue about the health effects, but they seem to be largely unwarranted. And I think if you guys see the data, even when Dr. Feigenbaum was talking about that, everyone talks about dietary cholesterol. Dietary cholesterol, even when the highest levels are checked, it's only correlated with something like 1 in 30 people above the group with almost zero dietary cholesterol. Like 1 in 30 people having some sort of cardiovascular risk. 1 in 30. When you compare the statistics. How much of that goes away when you're someone who trains vigorously and is very, very fit and athletic? Okay, so you're talking about a relatively small risk. An extra 1 in 30 people. That's a less than a 5% chance of having a higher risk to your cardiovascular from eating a very high cholesterol diet. I mean, that's there in the statistics, but it's very low. So people who are making a big deal about that are literal morons. And they are missing out on all of these benefits for people who train and lift, because you want to know what's good for your health in the long term? Very significant strength and muscle mass. That's correlated with enormous amounts of benefits. Everything from diabetes to cancer to Alzheimer's, dementia. So we need to be thinking in terms of these foods. We're talking about all these other health benefits from potentially being more jacked versus a very small risk of cardiovascular disease. And we know that weight training and muscle mass is preventative of cardiovascular disease anyways. All right, and that's just the eggs. What about our other food that grows baby animals? Whole milk. Whole milk is literally one of the most anabolic, if not the most anabolic food ever found. Most anabolic food ever found. Why? Come back over. Superior protein source. It is a vastly superior protein source, just like egg whites are. One of the highest quality protein sources we can possibly find. All of your supplements that are always touted as being good try to replicate what milk does, and they fall short. All of your protein powders are already in the milk. Whey protein, the most popular protein out there, is in milk. Casein, second most popular protein out there, already in milk. It's already there. We know that milk staves off fat gain to some extent. People who drink more dairy tend to be slightly leaner. We know that dairy in studies when a caloric deficit is present preserves muscle tissue better and it burns fat faster in a caloric deficit. Study after study after study over decades has found that. It's a body composition powerhouse. And you look at what else is going on with it. It's not just the protein, the fat, the calories, because all of that's phenomenal. It's all the electrolytes, the minerals in it. Calcium. And we know calcium's critical for muscle contraction, critical for fat loss, critical for our bone density. So is magnesium. It's one of the other big ones. We hear a lot of people talk about not enough magnesium in your diet. Magnesium seems to be directly anabolic. If you're deficient in magnesium, even a magnesium supplement has an immediate and direct anabolic effect. Milk is loaded with magnesium. It's loaded with magnesium. It's loaded with potassium. I'm not going to mention the sodium because people get scared of it, even though I tell people to salt load. It's not that high. You compare these even with the eggs, the potassium content of milk. It's easy to get all of your potassium needs just from milk alone if you had to. We need that for contraction. We need it for recovery. So those are three of your really big ones for athletes. Magnesium, potassium, calcium. Milk is absolutely loaded with them. And that makes it a superior hydration source. And I mentioned that before. It's the ultimate sports drink. When milk has been compared for even endurance athletes, like hours and hours into their training, when it has been compared in labs to a lot of sports drinks, it equals or surpasses them in terms of muscle rehydration. Because it's the combination of relatively simple sugars that actually have a low glycemic index, by the way. When we measure the insulin index and glycemic index of milk, it's actually lower than whole grains. It's lower than pretty much any whole grain ever found. Your brown rice, your oats, all that. But it has an enormous effect on muscle hydration. And it has to do with the combination of the carbs there, combined with all of those electrolytes. It has a complete electrolyte profile already there. You don't have to go buy extra, and it's cheap. Costs less than sports drinks. Buy a gallon of milk for $2, $2.50. I'm talking whole milk. Same thing, when whole milk has been compared in studies, post-workout, even when protein is equal, higher muscle protein synthesis. So much for the theory that the higher fat foods will slow down digestion to the point to where we reduce muscle protein synthesis. Everyone's always, we need these quick absorbing proteins. Whole milk, just like the whole eggs, beats skim milk on muscle protein synthesis post-workout, even when protein is equal. It has a profound anabolic effect. Has a profound rehydration and recovery effect. Study after study after study, and it makes sense. These are foods that grow baby animals. Foods that grow baby animals. These are whole foods. These are complete foods. And historically, go back and look back historically before anabolics existed. Look at what foods all the biggest, strongest men in the world routinely talked about consuming in large amounts. Full fat milk, number one. Eggs, right up there, number two, top of the list. I go so far as to say that if a person wanted the most anabolic diet they could possibly get, those two foods could be the basis of your diet. Throw in some vegetables and you have everything you need. You have a complete nutrition profile. Whole milk, eggs, and veggies. Even people who say, well, it's not enough carbs, need more carbs. Well, root vegetables. Throw in some potatoes. Literally have everything you need in your diet. Literally everything. And they're super anabolic foods. So even on a calorie per calorie basis, these are foods that will get you jacked. They will get you strong. They will help you recover. They're not going to make you fat. People aren't getting fat because of eating these sort of whole foods and training super hard. Okay, that's not what makes people fat. You don't get fat because you bust your butt in the gym and you train incredibly hard and incredibly heavy and then eat those foods. That's not what makes people fat. All right, it's cupcakes and ice cream and pizza and soda and sitting around being lazy. That's what makes people fat. Okay, it's not the milk and the eggs. So people need to drop that nonsense. That is not what's doing it. These foods will get you jacked. They will get you cock diesel. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.